How's Wednesday treating us?
Yep.
Good? All right. Good. All right. And so we are going to still continue with the youth protest. And today our focus is going to be on one element of it called the counterculture. All right. So this is maybe the real colorful part of the student protest movement. Maybe. It depends on perspective with that. I have been updating grades, and so please, if you are missing anything, let's just take some time to take care of business and get that stuff caught up, because this hex semester is zipping by. Pretty soon it's going to be week 4, and this is only a 6-week hex semester. Boom, and then we're done. Well, then you're done with History of the Americas. Woo! That's a little celebration there, perhaps. All right. So when you look at the youth protest, if we can think in general, we talked about they have numbers on their side, it seems like, right? And so as they come of age, the numbers and the challenging aspects come out. But I think also, isn't it part of being young to constantly ask why? You think about when you're a little kid, if you can remember that. You might have asked a lot of but why questions. And sometimes your parents had answers. Sometimes they didn't want to answer. Sometimes your why questions, the amount of them as they're coming in fast and furious, just might frustrate them, and then they might just simply, like my parents would simply say, well, that's just because it is. That's just the way it is. But it seems like in the 1960s, youth were not accepting, well, that's just the way it is. Okay? Does that seem like a plausible interpretation? That we're just not going to readily accept? Do we still have that kind of mentality of questioning and not accepting? Thoughts on that, either at home or here? So we're digging in some hard stuff right away. Do we still have that inquiry thought, inquisitive thought? We're constantly challenging or asking why. See some heads going this way. Why? Yes.
I think when we would say it because we did not have an answer. We were asking find what we're looking for. Would be.
Okay. All right. That's. So you have found ways to become independent in that process. Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Yes, I suppose this isn't probably the answer you're looking for, but
it doesn't matter what answer I'm looking for. I want to hear what yours is.
Well, I did it because I figured out I could annoy people, and that was funny to young me.
Oh, okay.
That's what I meant, sir.
Okay, gotcha. Well, then that kind of speaks to like my older brother. It's like it seems like you're just always asking questions because you just want to ask questions to see how far you can push people and stuff like that. Okay, all right. But it does seem like inquiry is still there, and just accepting as is not acceptable. I think, back in the 1960s, having access to information and compared to access to information today, there are different degrees of having that access to it, and that having more access to it either can further ask questions or become satisfying. Not having access to it, the level just keeps going. And we could see in the 1960s that from your placard activity that you did, there is just a whole smattering of areas of interest that people are questioning why. And we do have at periods in time, and you should get a sense that the 1960s is like a watershed time period in the United States. Some historians refer to it as an unpinned time, that there seems to be not a moment of one could say, peace. There seems to be a constant state of flux going on in the 1960s. We could go perhaps as earlier in that century to right at the time of the First World War, and then just right after. That was also a changing time period. So we go through it, and who knows, maybe today we are going through a time period in which we are questioning the why, all that. All right, so here we go, the counterculture. I have a little clip here that's going to give us a good intro to the counterculture. But if we could think about image, let's talk about image before. Let's brainstorm. What kind of images do we have of the counterculture? Kind of images or things that you, if we brainstorm, what comes to your mind when we talk about the counterculture? Aaliyah.
I just think about fashion, colors, long hair, and sun.
Okay. Fashion, colors, peace sign. Did you say hair?
Yeah.
Okay, the hair. Yes, the hair. Absolutely. Aaliyah? The hippies? Yeah, we're talking about the hippies. Yeah, we're talking about the hippies because they are hip. They're in. All right. They are in some ways, I would say, another version of the beatniks. And so you might have heard about like the Beats of the 1950s, and the image of the Beats where they wore black clothes, they hung out in coffee shops, they banged the bongos, and they had spontaneous poetry and all that stuff. Well, the hippies of the counterculture, they kind of take it to another level. Zach, what are you gonna say, man?
I was going to say just the attitude of severe aversion to violence or conflict.
Severe. Okay, they want to avoid it. They want to avoid it.
Yeah, especially with the Vietnam War.
Okay.
Would be the most recognizable point I can see.
So, but when we look at they don't want to engage, it seems like, remember, this is part of the counter culture. They don't want to be part of that culture. They want to create their own culture. So, drop out and tune in kind of mentality. Right, or tune in and drop out, and the old Leary, Timothy Leary approach to this whole movement. Okay, all right. There was an exhibit at the Minnesota History Center, and you brought up fashion, and there was a pair of blue jeans. You know, back in when, I don't know if your mom or dad or whoever like mends your clothes. At least in my day, when I would get a hole in the knee of my pants, because it always seemed like, you know, I'm always working at ruining the knees of my pants, my mom would put a patch on it. Well, there was a pair of blue jeans, Levi blue jeans, in this 1968 exhibit at the Minnesota History Center. And the only thing that you could really tell it perhaps was a Levi pair of blue jeans was it still had the label, but everything else was almost a patch. It's like, that was just it. You know, that was it. And that was very colorful, very colorful. And in many ways, they were minimalists as well. If we talk about almost like having zero waste, you know, and those people that want a zero waste, minimal lifestyle, here you go. That's these individuals right here. They've got more important things to focus on. It's like living every day. All right, I got a video clip here. It might be a little graphic. I mean, there's an aspect of the counterculture that could, in some ways, stretch the limits here. Might be my easiest way of saying that. All right, so let me mute it here.
Meant completely rejecting the values that had united their parents' generation.
I mean, where is it written in stone that people have to work from 9 to 5?
The Haight-Ashbury section of San Francisco became the center of the counterculture.
Suddenly, there was an environment where your personal history did not matter. Nobody cared who your parents were, whether you were rich, whether you were poor. You get up every day and you had no idea what the day would bring. There were the greatest looking women parading up and down the street. There was a sense of adventure, random combinations. You could catch a woman's eye and offer her your arm, and without a word, walk away and spend an afternoon making love, and if you didn't talk, that was okay.
I was looking for a new way to express myself, and I think everybody was. And unfortunately, a lot of people went to drugs because it came naturally out of what we were doing at the time.
It's a food for the soul. Right now, I'm on LSD. Right now, every color is going through my mind.
The psychedelic drug LSD became a rite of passage for many in the counterculture.
These were awfully hard on people who were in their 40s at that time. just awfully hard with the hair and the drugs and the music and the dirty clothes and the foul language that all became au courant, regardless of a political position one took.
Brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, if you truly care about your
Despised by many people in the older generation, the social ferment of the 1960s would nonetheless change forever the way young Americans looked at themselves.
That little clip, any immediate thoughts, reactions to the counterculture or to the hippies? Did it kind of hit some of our expectations? Okay. It's like I was telling Miss Iden during first hour, because she came down and was chit-chatting with me, and it's like, well, again, I was born in 1967, so I was just a little one running around during this time, so I probably wasn't very cognizant of what is happening. But my older brother and sister probably, and I probably had some cousins who were engaging in the counterculture with that. So with that, looking at, but for some of the messages and the themes that when you look at the youth, they're looking for an alternative way. So that's when we can look at the counterculture, is looking at an alternative way. And what that is, they may not quite know, but is that important to them? No, it's not. It's those individuals might want to believe, let's not sweat the details here. Let's not sweat the small thing. Let's not worry about that. It's some of that bigger picture items when you look at it in regards to the counterculture. All right, so let's jump into Schoology here, and let's just get into this activity called the counterculture. I opened it up today, so let's just do that right now. And boy, I've got a lot of attachments to it, and sorry, but it will be helpful. What we want, there are two important things, at least for now. One of them is the Counterculture Activity 2021. And then I also have some outlines that you could possibly use here. All right. We've had to make some adjustments because of COVID protocols. Normally we would do this a completely different type of activity. All right. So with that, let's see here. So you should have the counterculture activity right here. It's really like a two-parter type thing. We've got some research, but then we also got some drawings going on here. Right? We all like, well, at least I like drawings at times, and hopefully you do as well. But we want to research, we want to learn a little bit about who makes up the counterculture. Who are they? All right. If you listen to that one individual that was describing who partaked in the counterculture, they didn't care the person's background. So when we look at the counterculture, they're going to come from a variety of backgrounds. The actor was saying that we didn't care if the person was rich or poor, that type of thing. All right. So this is going to be a solo activity here, and you're going to do some research first, find and record on this document somewhere or in another document information regarding the counterculture movement. All right. But again, there's two parts to it, and you can figure out which way you want to go start with first. What is the counterculture challenging about the mainstream culture in society? What is it that they don't like? All right. What's prompting them to drop out of society? All right, so come up with a few. I think we have some ideas, but come up with a few. And those handouts, all those many handouts that I have attached to it, is a great start. But of course, we've got some links down here as well for that. How do they want to live their life? Right? And so, what kind of message are they coming up? How they want to live their life? All right, and There is a communal aspect to it. There's some of these don't even want to live in mainstream society. They create their own communes. They go out to the countryside and they create their own communes. Where are the centers of the counterculture movement? In the little video clip, where did they one of them was? San Francisco. Put a flower in your hair when you go to San Francisco. Because there's a lot of groovy people there. At least that's what the song says, San Francisco. So back in the day, 2001, when we took a group of students to San Francisco, about a month after 9/11, we did. We took the students, we're like, you know, if we're gonna see the sights in San Francisco, we do have to go to the Haight-Ashbury area, see where flower power was happening at that moment. See what it looked like afterwards. Did not look the same from the 60s. Describe the behavior, lifestyle. That's the imaging, that's the clothing, that's the action. Describe the music and the arts associated with the counterculture. Psychedelic is a part of it. And so there's music that speaks to, plays to this psychedelic style that they're getting at, right? So like Jefferson Airplane would fit into that mode there. So describe their music. Most importantly, the big historical questions: what you set members of the counterculture apart from the members of the traditional mainstream society, and what characteristics, right? That's the R&D, all right? That's just finding the facts and all that. The other part of this is designing your own hippie, right? You got to create a silhouette. If this was not COVID time, I probably would say we're going to break out a big piece of paper and we're going to outline, we'll put an outline of you, and then create it. But we can't do that. We got to follow protocols and all that stuff. So you can use one of the outlines, and yeah, they're cheesy outlines. I'll admit that they are cheesy. All right, and they may not look like a hippie, but you got to make them look like a hippie. All right, right now he looks kind of clean cut, but you can change that up. So you can use these if you want, any one of these, or draw your own. And I know some of you are artistic enough that you could draw your own. But the most important thing is you're drawing it, you create your silhouette, and then inside and outside that silhouette, that's where you're going to put your information. So we're going to create a little profile here to kind of get a little idea of what makes up a hippie. All right, and so including your information on either side, you know, inside, outside, stuff that you had researched. Find and include notable quotes, sayings, or phrases that characterize, and again, that can come from your research as well. Make sure your responses are there as well. When we talk about be appropriate and you draw visuals and be appropriate, you don't need to draw marijuana leaves all over the place. All right, I'll just throw that out there. I mean, yeah, drugs is part of it. Marijuana leaves and mushrooms. All right, it can be in there, but it can't be overt, you know, all over the place. Then if it's all over the place, then it's like, oh, come on there. You might have a conversation. That type of thing. But that's part of it. But it's also colorful too. There's lots of vibrant colors. All that stuff can go in there. And how male hippies dressed up can be different than how female hippies dress up. You know? So you got all that in there. So kind of give you a sense here. Let's see if I can call something up here. Let me just stop this for a moment. See if I can give you an example. All right. Let me share my screen here now. All right. Seem to be a clicking machine. All right, an example. Here we go. Now, this would be in a different class when I talk about information and you have a silhouette. this was for another class that we studied the Chinese Civil War, and you got your communists and you got your nationalists. And we wanted to get a profile. What makes them different? So outside the silhouette, we had all our information, and of course, we had a big historical question. So that's what I'm getting at when I talk about information, how you can put it on and around your silhouette. Okay. All right. Please stop me if you need clarification. This could be a good time to ask for clarity. Those here are at home. All right. So that's kind of like our example. I don't think Mao was a hippie, but he did have the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s. And they did challenge authority in the 1960s, even if it was him. All right, lots of stuff here. All right, so you got your research part up here. You can use any of these handouts because there is a lot of handouts, and this will help you out instead of just GTSing a profile of a hippie, because you have no idea what you might come across. You could come across some 7-year-old hippie. All right. So here is at least a good start, as well as these as well. Maybe you're just intrigued by flower power. All that. Okay. And you can use those. All right. So it says Thursday, April 1st. All right, I'm going to call that kind of a tentative deadline because we don't have school on Friday, right? Okay. So, and even though I am a quick grader and all that stuff, that I quickly take a look at your stuff and all that, this is not a firm deadline. I would say, if you can get it in Friday, Saturday, that'd be fabulous. All right. That'd be, use the lingo of the time. That'd be far out, man. Far out. Or, can you dig it? I got more of that, and I won't stop using it. Sorry. All right. So with that, we're going to work on this today. So do you have any questions about? Make sure you put clothes on them. I know sometimes you might think hippies run around, National Geographic moments where there's not a lot of clothes. Let's put some clothes on them. All right. That'd be fabulous. All right. I'll cut you loose. I'll let you work on it. Those at home, stay if you have questions or you can exit. Those here, let's work on it. I'm gonna have some time tomorrow as well. Yeah. Yeah, you can do it on paper. Do you need to get some paper? Yeah, I'll pick out some.